Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tiff Talks Tech. Today, I am excited because I have Kara Rafferty, who's the National Director of Sales at apartmentgeofencing.com. And today, we're going to be talking about full stack fatigue and just why people are turning away from a one size fits all model because we're seeing that more and more. But before we dig in, Kara, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm with Apartment Geofencing, and I've had the pleasure of working for so many brands over the years. I started at an ILS. I've always been on the sales side or association management side, but I started at rent.com for an ILS. It was a partner guide at the time,
Yeah.
and took a couple stops at RealPage and a few other places. So definitely happy to talk on this topic. I've worked for full stack marketers and love many things about them. And I'm really enjoying the ride here at one curated marketing point solution geofencing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And being a customer myself, I've seen some of the positives and drawbacks of full stack as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about the shift and why we're seeing that in multifamily. Why do you think marketers are moving away from that one size fits all and getting more specialized?
Big topic.
Yeah.
We'll slice it and dice it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I kind of want to go back. I was looking at what we were going to talk about today. And one thing that was glaringly obvious to me is if you came into this industry in the last 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years, you may not know anything else, right? And so I did a little digging to make sure that my history was in line. But really, we saw this emergence of property management softwares having the full stack in the
Yeah.
last 10 years, right? So revenue management was established in the early 2000s. And when I came into the industry, so I started in hospitality. I worked for Panera Bread, and I was really thinking about this. And I was like, okay, what did I bring into this industry? Well, what I brought into this industry was an understanding of a really strong brand, right? The power of that, the connection that you can bond with people with really good customer service, and just really having an impact. So when I came into this industry, I'm working for an ILS and I'm talking to people, and not many people have property management software. And this is 2013, 2014. Revenue management, oh my gosh. I give someone my rents, I publish it online, I reply to a review. Oh no, 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 no. So if we think about it, it was really the last 10 years that this became extremely popular. And so I was thinking of this through, and I was like, okay, well, how did I find my first apartment? Or how did I, make big life decisions? And, years and years ago, it was seeking out that menu. Let's look at all my options and then let me see what I'm interested in. And so what I think kind of happened was people um, were buying that way. And so we started headed that direction with full stack. Okay. So what am I meaning? So let's say a Real Page or a Yardi, they have the brain, they have the accounting, right? And that's where it all started. So once the person has all your information and you're trusted and you're their accounting provider, it is very easy to start tacking on little things. What else can we do? What else can we do? It's cloud based. Let's do cloud based leasing. Let's do online payments. Let's do this or that. And so there are pros and cons that we're going to get into, but I don't think that we really had a choice at the onset. At the onset, it was if you want these items, you need them to integrate with your accounting software.
Yeah.
So we were all pushed in this direction.
Yeah.
And really, of late, integration is the magic word, right? Integration changes it all. Now people are able to actually. So I kind of thought about this, and I just kind of wanted to start, Tiffany, with I don't know we ever had a choice when
Yeah.
we started out. Maybe we didn't, but now there is choices, and that's opening up this debate and this conversation.
Yeah, I remember, and this kind of leads into my next question is like when I was on the operator side, tested full stack, and I was like, all the pieces are going to talk to each other, right? And that's not necessarily always the case. even within some of these larger companies, and I'm definitely not here to bash anything, but some of these companies, they really specialize in certain things, and so when you tack things on within that, and they may be buying up things, different companies, and they don't always talk to each other, even though you think that they would, and so that can be kind of the danger, but, what are some of those other limitations that marketers face when they are relying on full stack for all of their needs?
Oh gosh, limitations. Well, I think if you want to relate it to what they experience on site, think of an acquisition, think of a new property, right? And that team is wired just differently. They have different culture, they have different values, they have different processes. And unless you take the proper time, to your words, to meld it together and create a path that makes sense for all, it's not going to work. Well, when you do kind of Frankenstein these products on, it's not doing that. And so I'm going to say the thing that you shouldn't say. A single point solution still may not give you that,
Right.
right? So that's kind of the ultimate thing. Like, this isn't don't go full stack or completely break apart your full stack conversation, right? Because both can be true. What you're on getting offered at your full stack and externally could be of similar value to you for different reasons, right? So you're asking, what are you kind of giving up? Geez, well, let me throw it back on you for a second as I'm thinking this through. I mean, I can definitely say when you have a person that has not invested in understanding the whys and how you use this product and some of the potential pitfalls, it's really hard to service it,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, let me throw it back on you for a second. So, what have you seen
Yeah.
out there as far as some pitfalls sitting in the seat of a marketer?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it's always gonna be an issue, and we think that I mean, I did. I thought that going full stack was gonna solve all of our problems. Everything's just gonna talk to each other, and it didn't. And so, like you said, it's so important to take what you can from that stack and say what's working and what's not, because we would just see connections breaking in certain areas, or the reporting didn't line up the way that it was supposed to, and that would affect our numbers. And I think it's important to look at what information is feeding and in that integration. And I did another episode on APIs and understanding the API, and the questions that you need to ask your partners. I think that's going to be very important, and especially when you're looking at that full stack, what information is being pushed and pulled.
Yeah, yeah. And, this is also an interesting time to step back and talk about the implementation. That is actually a place that I see really hard with full stack. And, there's only so much people can do in a certain day or prioritization. And if you are onboarding 15 solutions at once in a full stack, how do you give the proper attention to each one? And how do you know you're getting it? So smaller teams tend to gravitate toward the one size fits all, seeing it as a great option, a single point of contact. But really, where I have seen single point solution specialized companies really shine is stopping and saying, okay, this is what we recommend, or this is how you're going to ramp up faster, or maybe you don't need that package. Maybe you need something else and it could be less costly. So, the crawl, walk, run. A lot of these smaller operators want you to stick around these small operations. They want you to be a long term customer. So they're willing to stop and take it slow and consult you, like more of a consultative onboarding than it is necessarily fill out this form, send it back, and we'll let you know when it's live.
That's a great point, and I think something that is a big pain point with onboarding, especially because I'm not saying any one provider has bad customer service, but it can be more difficult with a bigger provider to get that attention, like you're saying. And a lot of the smaller, more specialized, that's all they do. So they are helping look at your results and giving you, like you said, consultative feedback. You can't know everything. And so having the right partners in place to help you understand how your properties are doing and how they could improve. Because a lot of the full stack, they might just say, oh, yeah, this isn't performing, and then not really give you what you could do to improve.
Yeah, and I joke around when I'm talking to our current inbound clients. I like to say, soon to be clients, and I'll tell them that what I really love about one thing we do here is the optimization month to month or quarter to quarter, depending on your package, and how our client success team is not ever going to say to you, you're not performing. You need to spend money. It's about how can we make this work for you at this level. But let's kind of go back into the implementation thing for a second. The other thing I'm seeing a lot that I think people should be more in tune with is turnover at these companies. So small, big, medium, if you're getting a different person, a different point of contact every 6 months to a year, that in itself could cause problems that everything else could be grand, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. That's totally true. And the agility, that's another thing I just thought of. Like we would request features all the time and they could never be implemented when we were going full stack because it was like, you're on a 2-year implementation for this little feature. Whereas if we were going more specialized, a lot of the specialized companies do have more of that agility to add that little thing that you need, or they might already have it.
It's fun. It's funny you said that. So one note I made when I was thinking about this for today was um, large tech stacks can either be too slow or too fast.
Hmm.
It's very hard for them to find the middle ground because there's this push to not be the last person to market with a widget,
Yeah.
but getting it out there. So I think, the larger companies full stack either too slow, too fast, or the lack of flexibility, right? So when you go smaller, curated, more point solutions, you are getting more flexible terms. You are getting more one-on-one consultative. You're having typically less turnover because the staff has a different culture and priorities. And then the other thing that I think we all fall into with full stack, because you have to make it easy. There's too much going on with full stack. You have to keep it simple. And so a lot of the time you find one price, one package across the board.
Yeah.
That's just what you pick, right? And if we thought that every property in every market was the same, there wouldn't be a need to centralize because you could just have everyone do it from the office. Everyone do it from the main office. So you need to figure out what is best for each property, and that's really hard to do, right? So at full stack, it's very easy for you to say, I'm going to pick a mid-tier service, and I'm going to pick this particular package because it's this spend and that's in my budget. So what I'm finding is that full stack really pushes us as marketers to fit into our budget, where specialized offerings allow us to pick what's best for the property.
Yeah. One thing that also came to mind as you were saying that is like free doesn't necessarily mean that it's free. You could be actually spending more time and money using a free widget or free add-on that full stack has for you rather than spending a little bit more. You could be spending your leasing agent's time, their sanity, like their just all the things that they are working on. You could be giving them more of a headache by adding that little piece of friction. So just kinda looking for what's the best in class.
So I laugh because we were talking about a post that our CEO Matthew Murray, look it up, where we said is the other four-letter F word for fall free.
Yeah.
And how it's not better. And so we were laughing about that post. So take a look there just for fun. But we were just talking about that. Is free free? And is free better? And is free just another four-letter word?
Yeah, definitely. It can definitely hinder you, for sure. So I do
Yeah.
wanna I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about specialized solutions and how are specialized companies able to give more value to multifamily marketers compared to that full stack? We said some of the limitations, but how can the specialization really add more?
Well, there's a couple ways I've seen it done in my past few roles. I think that specialized services are going to be more likely to think like they're your team member, right?
Mm,
To think about what makes sense for you. I also think that specialized companies use less of that cut and paste response. So when you have a owner or a third party or, an institutional investor asking you questions and you go to that partner, they're probably going to give you a detailed response from their own stream of thought, or they have a owner or founder they can go to directly. Where when you're working with full stack, they really don't have those resources and those people and that type of escalation to get you an answer. So, I work with a software provider for my apartment association. We run our website, our payment, our membership through it. It is extremely hard to get my chatbot to help me understand why my events calendar is not populating. And 3 days later, I'll go in and figure it out on my own. So I call them the help less desk, and so for me, if I had a specialized person for that, they may understand specifically what our problems are, where we're coming from, and provide us a response that actually gives us help and moves us forward in our problem solving versus just giving me more time and more headache.
yeah. Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind for me too is like we used a full stack for our online advertising. So we had a company do our websites, they did our SEO, our SEM, our pay per click, our blah, 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 all the alphabet soups. And they would come once a quarter or whatever, have an entire team of people to speak on all the things that they did for us. And it almost felt like it wasn't as specialized because they weren't really giving us the explanation on our analytics. They were just saying, I was very new at this point, so I didn't fully understand pay per click. So they were, just giving us the rough rundown, whatever. These properties are doing well, these properties need extra spend. That's it. And when I went over to Effortless, not to just like boast the company that I work for, but um, that's all that Effortless does is they're more specialized and they really dig into the pay per click. And so I was learning a lot about how pay per click works just by looking at the reporting because it was very just digging into the numbers. And so I was impressed. That was one of the reasons I was really excited to go work for them because they were really more caring about those analytics and giving proper attention. So that's, I think, one of the benefits.
Yeah, I think one thing I saw here is it's not just sharing the benchmarks, it's sharing the why
Right.
behind the benchmark,
Yeah.
right? And, and I always love to upfront tell people, we may decide that we don't want you to hit the benchmark because of, I'm going to give a granular example. With geofencing, you like to geofence competitors sometimes. And I was having a conversation with the local owner in my local market. It's a tertiary market, they're third party Albany. And they suggested, well, do you think I should do this property? And I said, absolutely. Their new construction, they just leased up. Your new construction, price is similar enough. Amenities are similar enough. But let me ask you a question. Are you comfortable seeing no walk ins for 6 to 9 months from that geo fence? And they kind of thought about it. And I said, they just started their leases. You're not going to get people in the door when they just sign their lease, but you need to be there early and often. So sometimes the benchmarks should be thrown out the window. And if you don't have those conversations or opportunity to have those conversations, a lot of things can be missed. So I love digging into the data. I think that being kind of paid to be part of your team, an extension of your team is a huge value add. I also think that it's really hard to break yourself out of that box. So I think you kind of need to have a list of questions, and I'm kind of going off pace a little bit here too, but I also I'm going to advocate for full stack for a second. I think you need to go back as often as you can annually. I know you can't for every provider, and get a new demo on your products,
Hmm.
because I think you need to giving them a fair shot and asking them the questions. Can we do this? Can we do that? Because you really should explore what
Yeah.
you can do with your current provider, right? And then ask those same questions to the other person. Um, and then the other thing I kind of want to say that's like a pro for more of the smaller curated offerings is they can test and go outside the box a lot faster and bring in new products. So I guess I would say talk to your full staff, explore what you currently have there, make sure that it's not with some small tweaks, you can't make it work. But then the other thing is, why not find out what you're missing outside of there and just give those smaller providers those smaller pieces? Like,
Yeah.
the small providers are there to do what's great for you and not push full portfolio on you. Like, that's another big difference I have found, is that flexible terms, flexible properties, flexible product offerings.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that, which is why I'm here.
What do you think about, and I'm also kind of going off, but I know a lot of property teams, their pain point is having too many providers. And that's one of the reasons why they go full stack is because they don't want to add another team or another thing to their team's plate. How do you think we combat that?
Well, I wrote some notes down on that exactly. That's where the rubber meets the road. And that's where I think we have some improvement, because I was having some great conversations at Social Media Summit with some of these providers. And I said the same thing that you did. How can we make it easier for them? Is it offering that we all come on a monthly call together? All of your providers, take the shields down and say, okay, we're doing what's best for them.
Yeah.
But then how do you do that without creating your own tech stack?
Yeah.
Like, is that not like, I think we need to understand what the client really needs month to month from each provider
Yeah.
and meeting them there. I had a conversation with somebody, growing client out of Texas, and I said, what do you need? And ultimately, what we decided is that every other month, what she needed from me is a couple bullet points about what we're testing, what we're doing, how she's performing, and move on. That's all she needs. She just needed a couple things to share with her team if put under question about the service. That's what she needs. And she wanted the monthly reports, and we're going to connect quarterly, and then we move on. So what we can do as the providers that are, specialized, is take the time to understand what they need from us. But then there's one little caveat. We all need to anticipate what they need that they just don't have time for.
Yeah.
So, what that might look like is sending them something going on in the market, sending them something that's going on in the industry, being a resource beyond that service you offer them.
Right. Yeah, I think that's such a great point. That was something I was just doing actually for Effortless because I was like, a lot of people don't understand our reporting because I didn't when I was on the operator side. I didn't fully understand paperclip because I was such a generalist and I had to understand a little bit of this, a little bit of that, blah, blah, blah. So being able to have that partner that can give you a resource, this is how you understand what you're doing, this is how you understand the market, so that they can go back and explain it to their higher ups. I think that's such a benefit.
We used to call it, in my Panera days, train the trainer.
Yeah.
And that is something we're actively working on. We have, older, outdated copies of most of the stuff that we're refreshing. But, what is a walk in geofencing? Where does my ad get shown? We want to give our clients the tool so that they have a library and an arsenal that they can go to on their own time. Because that's another thing that we need to acknowledge that is hard with both sides of this debate, which is the we need it now mentality,
Mm,
right? So people are across the US, they're working remotely. There's no way that everyone can get what they need on a now type of time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 24/7 dashboards you can access, but I think what we can do as specialized partners is create the toolbox for them
Yeah.
and have it there when they need it. Self-service, right? To some degree. Give them self-service because that's what they want. But then just remember that at the end of the day, people work with people they like and that support them. And you can't just rely on that either.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about centralization because you mentioned it earlier. As properties focus more on that, how does having a specialized tool help streamline that operation and make a more efficient marketing engine for them?
Ooh, that's a big one. Okay. So how does it make it more efficient? Well, let me put it this way, at least in my own world. um, we tend to think that we're a great fit for people because it's our sole focus, all right, which is many providers. One other thing I'll touch on is it's going to be interesting how the future plays out because specialized providers are now going out and offering two or three or four pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
So you're going to see maybe you're going to see this ebb and flow. I think, honestly, I think this is going to be something that's relevant that we're talking about in 5 years, in 7 years, because I think things are going to get bought up. People are going to offer more stuff and la, 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 la. Centralization. One thing that I think is really interesting about it is if you work with a client, if you work with a product like us, let's say for geofencing, and we're providing you that curated, upfront brand awareness,
Yeah.
we have this ideology that it will help you with everything throughout your marketing mix. If somebody knows who you are early and often and is putting you kind of bookmarked in their brain, you are already putting yourself a step ahead when they go on apartments.com, apartmentguide.com, rent.com. And so, what we like to tell folks that are centralized or not centralized is we are helping you in the front end and make the whole process easier for the renter and for you to get the lease. So, where we fit into the centralization is I would like to think that we're helping you from the onset, making the rest of your process easier, renter journey easier. It's going to be a different story though, Tiffany, right? For
Yeah.
other providers. I could easily sit here and say that if you went full stack, that would be great for centralization because less people, less points of contact, less this, less that. But isn't the point to create the best experience for your residents? Like,
Yeah.
isn't that at the end of the day what we're trying to do? We're trying, it's not just heads in beds, it's creating home, creating long term home. And the more that providers like me can help on the leasing end, let you focus on what are the most important things with retention.
I think that's the big benefit because your team, they're pulled in so many different directions. And so having a specialized partner there to help you, it's going to help save you time in the long run rather than having to dig into all these little things of like, why isn't this connecting? Why isn't this working? Why is it not the best in class? It's because XYZ.
Yeah, and I also think something we can do as specialized providers that we're starting to do with a few clients is we're not looking at performance of their full portfolio. We're saying, let's look at the top two performers and the bottom two performers. Let's draw understanding on what we might be doing at the two top performers, and let's apply some of that to the bottom. And I say that, and I also am very interested in maybe picking out like a top performer nationwide. There's some nuances there I won't bore everyone with today, but I think there is value in not looking at your entire portfolio all the time. Like, come on. Like,
Mm.
do we really just want to fix the things that aren't necessarily going well, right? There are portfolios out there where you have your two, three, four, your one third of your property stack that's stabilized, you're not worried about. So why don't we take our time and energy and really dig into helping the ones that need it, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a great point for sure. Switching gears just a little bit, I want to talk about the future of marketing, especially in multifamily. For those marketers who are considering the switch from full stack to more specialized, what advice would you give them on evaluating and choosing the right products as they start to dig into that?
I think a little bit of what I already said. I would ask, I would, if you are going to switch providers, it's a big decision.
Yeah.
So I think understanding employee turnover will help you understand, are you going to make traction with a person who understands what your needs are for them just to leave? So I think that's important. I also think understanding flexibility and how that plays into your portfolio. So if you have somebody that has 3 month, 6 month terms, and it's not a service that you need year round, like online bill pay, you know, does that give you flexibility to do something else with that money that you could use? I think that's a consideration factor. I also think understanding the self service component because your staff is most likely going to be pulled multiple directions. Um, and I have to say it, even though I took it for granted at every job because we had it, clear reporting.
Yeah.
The number one thing I'm hearing from people that have used a geofence provider in the past is they did not feel like they had clear reporting.
Mm.
And again, it goes back to self service. We don't want our clients to feel like they are self servicing themselves, but because we don't know what time of day and what day of the week you're going to need that information and how quickly, does that provider have the tools that you need when you need them?
Yeah. And one thing I would throw in too is like, don't just look at one. You have to compare. You have to look at multiple companies and then decide what works best for your needs. And like you said, we're so relational. We buy from other people, and you do need to take that into consideration because I've worked with great products and I've needed help and not gotten it before because the rep that I was working with was really, really busy and didn't have it in their capacity to get back to me on time. And that's fine, but just who are you working with? Are you gonna be able to work well together? Because for me, that wasn't really helpful, but for somebody else, like, they might need a few days. That's fine. But just look at who you're working with and what is the service that they're gonna be able to provide.
Yeah, capacity is a great thing too. One thing I also really encourage people to ask, because a lot of the time we are up against maybe not full staff, but we're up against like an agency style,
Yeah.
right? That will have all the marketing offerings. Is I'll say, ask the question on how they prioritize marketing mix.
Mhm.
Because, let's say I'm going to pick a product that I don't do and that you don't do, which is, like let's say blogs. I'm just throwing out like a very like content marketing,
Right.
right? How do they prioritize content marketing? Is it we're just going to throw the money that's left over at it?
Mm.
And does that make sense for your strategy at your company? I see a lot of people take SEO and PPC and we're going to, put this amount of the budget toward it. And the only thing we're doing with these brand building and these socials and whatever is what's left over. The leftover strategy might not be a forward thinking one.
Yeah, that's a great point. I agree.
Yeah. I like good leftovers, but not those.
Yeah, totally. As we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts that you wanna share and, you think could help people as they are looking to change their stack?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to ask for referrals and don't be afraid to, like you said, shop. I think the only thing, oh, this is actually the biggest piece of advice I'm going to give anyone that is listening to this. I highly recommend that you are transparent with the people that you're shopping, that
Oh,
you are
yeah.
shopping, and what your timeline is. Because the last thing I want to do for people, like I do, all I want to do is have conversations with people. I always joke around with me. I say, I don't need you to buy from me. I just need you to communicate with me on what is going through your head. And once you do that, your people you're shopping, the dynamic should change. And if it doesn't change, that's a red flag. But, if you tell somebody, I'm not going to have a decision for 2 months, they should respect that. But you have to, they're not mind. That's what I'm getting at. They're not mind readers, and don't be scared. Don't be scared to tell them that you're shopping and that you might not need your solution. It'll help them understand where your head's at. So just be
Yeah.
transparent. You want that from us.
I think that's such a great point. I've talked about this before, but when I was on the operator side, I was such an introvert and I felt so awkward telling somebody why we weren't going to go with them. And so sometimes I'd just kind of ghost them a little bit. Um, because I just felt bad. And a lot of times it might not even be their product. It might just be a decision that wasn't even made by you. And you just have to communicate that, and it's fine. The vendor, what I found moving to the vendor side is they're not gonna get offended. They just wanna know so that they can stop bugging you or that they can, be a resource for you in the future, but they don't wanna bombard you most of the time.
No, they don't. And let's just go back to the resource thing as we run out of time. The other day, I found out that there's somebody in the marketing world that wants to have coffee at OpTech, and I'm very excited to meet with them. Um, but the initial reach out to them was like 4 years ago, and they ghosted. And I for a fact know that they're job hunting. And like what my golden rule of multifamily is, keep your resources open. And I think that everyone can use everyone proactively, collaboratively. So I do think the ghosting thing happens a little bit more than it has to.
Yeah.
And people you will need that person at some point for something. God knows I have in the past. So I would just really lean into honest, authentic conversations because they're you're gonna need that person at some point.
Yeah, that was definitely a lesson I learned, and I would see them like, when I moved to the vendor side, I would be like, "Oh, shoot, I totally ghosted that person, to feel bad, and now we get to work together in a different capacity." So, like, don't make that mistake that I made. Like, be friendly, be honest and open and just real with them because they're not gonna be offended. If they are, then sorry about it, but
If they're offended, then you got the answer you needed.
right.
I think that also, you know what? Let's end on this note. Once you tell somebody that you're not working with them, the way they respond speaks volumes
Right.
on how you would have been treated at your business. So, I think that when you run into somebody at a trade show event and they snub you, then that tells you what they're really out there to do. Um, the other thing I think that's really interesting, and I guess I really will end on this note, is what is the provider doing to make the industry a better place?
Mhm.
That to me, I lead my board for my association, Apartments of New York. Come check us out in upstate New York by leaving the industry a better place. So one thing that we're doing to contribute to the fabric of the industry is hosting a multifamily marketing specific event on the East Coast. We call MME, Multifamily Marketing East. Take a look online. It's a free event. Go pre-register for it. It's next June. And it's something I'm really proud of that we're doing as a collaboration. We're spearheading it, but find out how invested they are in the industry because that will speak volumes to how you'll be treated.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree, and it's definitely not I said this a lot. It's not about just selling your product, it's about becoming a partner, and how can you really work with people and just gain their respect rather than, just selling them a product.
A product lasts a day, right? An impact lasts a lifetime. So yeah, I'm really excited to meet some people that listen in. Follow me on LinkedIn or reach out to me at Kara, Kara at apartmentgeofencing.com. Yes, I'm going to answer that for you because I've heard you ask your host those
Yes,
questions.
yes, I was gonna ask you where people could connect with you, so yeah, for sure. My last question too is I ask this of all of my guests. Does not have to be related to this, but what's a tech tool that you are loving right now in your personal life that you want to scream from the rooftops and share with people?
I think it's called Max AI.
Mm,
It's a part or a segue or a piece of ChatGPT. It lives on my browser
hmm.
and it summarizes my my question. It summarizes the content I review all at the top. And I've been playing around with it. and I'll type things in, help me find a two-bedroom that's pet friendly near me. And it pops up an answer that's thoughtful, that gives me the response and links to go to it. And I love it for my personal use, but I love it to see how the search experience change.
I was just thinking that, like, it's crazy how we use AI in our everyday lives. I do for sure. And so how is that gonna affect what we do in the future? It's interesting.
Yeah, go on ChatGPT and ask it, what's one thing I may not know about myself that you can tell me? And we were doing that internally at our job and seeing what ChatGPT was telling us about ourselves. It's a very fun
Ooh, I'm gonna
thing
go
to.
do that. I love that. There was one I think I saw on Instagram. It was like, ask ChatGPT to roast your Instagram feed. And it was so funny
Yeah,
because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that about me." It hurt my feelings, but it was true.
yeah, I'm not thick enough skinned for a robot to tell me.
Mine
Uh,
was like,
nope.
"You look like you're a Hallmark card who goes to Disney World too much and has to prove that you traveled the world." And I was like, "Well, yeah."
That's really interesting. Yeah, yeah, it's really, I could talk all day on this topic, but yeah, I don't think it's one size fits all. I think you need to be really clear about, who do you want to work with? How
Yeah.
do you want them to work with you? And can they meet those needs?
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, Tiffany, there's one other thing we did not hit on that is so important. When you find that golden supplier vendor partner, ask them who they like to work with. I think
Ooh,
that
yeah.
is not. I think when and obviously you gotta still you can't take their word for it. Like, please go do your homework.
Yeah.
But I think that like-minded companies that know, ask
Yeah.
the question. It's underutilized.
Yes, and there are reasons why they like to work with those people because, like, it could be that they're really responsive, they're really responsible, they're really on top of things, and they know that you're gonna like that too. So, there's usually a reason why certain vendors like to work with other vendors. Um, so yeah,
Mhm.
definitely that is a good call out for sure. Yeah. Well,
For having
I was
me.
just gonna say thank you so much for joining me. I think this has been an amazing conversation, and I think it's really gonna help people as they do their shopping. So thank you. Like Kara said, you can find her on LinkedIn, and any of those other places. So thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you.